They're calling it an historical deal, a new era for Canadian energy, but it's non-binding. BC can veto it. Native can veto it. So what are Carney and Smith actually signing today? Let's find out together. What's going on, Jason?
Hey, brother, I'm doing pretty good out here in Alberta, paying close attention to what Danielle is doing today, Premier Smith. And we already got the cat out of the bag. Carney kind of let the cat out of the bag already in Parliament. So we know this is just for show. And the mainstream media is very pleased. They say it's a great deal. So we know it's a horrible one. And it's not even a deal, it's just an understanding at this stage.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's non-binding. I was looking at it this morning. So not only is it not binding, but even David Ibby is the premier. Is it David Ibby or Chris Ibby? It's David Ibby, right? The premier of BC, that's already bragging about the fact that he can veto it, and we know that the natives are going to be able to veto it. So literally, it serves no purpose. It's circus for the masses, bread and circuses. But you know what the real question is, and this is what I'm very interested to see, is how is Danielle Smith going to react to that? Because technically, one thing is for sure, she's not stupid. She's not an idiot. She's a very smart girl. So she already knows that this is non-binding. She already knows that David Ibby has that veto power. So does native bands. So is she just selling it to her supporters? Does she think her supporters are not paying attention? Is it just for the media? This is what I'm curious to see. How is she going to react? What is she going to do in the following days about this? Because there's no way that guys like you are going to be happy about this.
No. It even has carbon capture as part of it and some other things that doesn't work well out here. It's not the conditions that people are looking to get into. It just makes it far more expensive. Regulations are still in place, the no tanker ban. So even if this does happen, where does it go? There's no tankers allowed on the West Coast. Like, there's a lot of regulations and laws in place already that it makes this a no-go. And then on top of that, tomorrow is the beginning of the UCP AGM. So I do think this is a positioning on her part to try and have the conversation kind of die down for independence. I think what she's trying to do here is appease people that want to see prosperity happen in Alberta, and she thinks this may help. But unfortunately for her, we know what an MOU means. We saw all the things that are attached to this, and not just the Premier of BC, but there's already a letter out from First Nations group in BC that says, no, you can do natural gas, but we're not going to allow oil across our ceded or unceded land. So there's already resistance to this. We knew that before it happened. And I really thought, in my mind, I think she was trying to have a press conference today, the day before the AGM starts, to look good into the AGM. But unfortunately for her, Pierre Poilievre and Carney threw her under the bus the other day in the Parliament when they kind of let the cat out of the bag here. So here they're signing it.
Yeah, here we go.
I think you got a little thumbs up.
So completely unbinding. This means absolutely nothing. This is even less binding than a promise ring for your girlfriend in high school.
That's good.
There's the photograph that we're waiting for. But we are expecting about 9 minutes for her to give the press some time. I talked to her press secretary yesterday. So we'll see what she has to say now. And even the oil and gas people have said skeptically optimistic, which will be the best way to position this at this stage.
That's it. As soon as I read that it was non-binding and native bands and the BC Premier has veto, I'm like, you're done. This means nothing. This is bread and circuses for the masses. But is that going to hurt her? Because
yeah, this is going to hurt her a lot. Absolutely. So, this added a lot more oil and gas to the movement to separate than it did anything else. There's a lot more fuel there now because people know exactly what this means. This is not binding. This doesn't actually get us anything. And it's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen.
So why is she doing it? This is the part I don't understand. So up to now, she had given Mark Carney an ultimatum until the Grey Cup, right? That was her deadline. And now the Grey Cup is gone. That was like last week or 2 weeks ago. So now we don't see anything else. There's nothing else going on. Live event is now over.
Wow, they're supposed to be. Yeah, let me just pull this up. They may be on her channel next. We'll go check out her channel. Because here's what her press secretary said yesterday.
That's
Yeah.
it. We're done.
I
We're
would
out.
not be
Bye-bye.
surprised if she's chosen not to say anything, to be frank with you, because there's not much she can say to salvage this at this stage.
And it's
it's
unfortunate because I bragged about her skills of handling the press. Like, she's been very good in the past in walking that line on how to address the press and be in between independence and in between staying in Canada. Like, she's always played it pretty good. Like, she was very, very good. This is bad. Like, if that's what it is, yeesh.
Yeah, but I think what she was trying to do, because she talked about this in my interview with her, that the MOU, she was trying to work out on the MOU. And what I think she was trying to do was just kind of temper down the conversation of independence during the AGM. But Andrew Scheer, Poilievre, and Carney all threw her under the bus ahead of time. So I'm not sure if she was planning for that, if she was expecting that, but it happened. The cat's out of the bag, because as soon as we learned that the veto has been held by the way, the veto is supposed to be federal, not provincial or First Nations. So he's basically passed the buck there. Carney could, if he wanted to, push this through. But yeah, I think it was more to try and temper down the conversation at the AGM than anything else. So I'm going to put into the private chat here.
I got it
According
already.
to her press secretary,
I'm on their YouTube channel right now. It's
minutes.
waiting. Yep, it's waiting right now. 12:15. You were bang on. So I'm looking at it as soon as it comes up.
They were getting together with the press at 9:30, signing, and then there's a premier presser at 9:50 or 10:15.
Yep, I have it. It says 5 minutes. It should go live, so I have it right here.
Perfect.
But it gives us the time to kind of break that down, because keep in mind, I'm a French guy from Montreal, but I identified Alberta as being probably the number one underspoken about problem in Canada over the past 10 years. And it's not getting any better. And the people that elected Daniel Smith to kind of either get a better deal or get a separation or sovereignty, as you like to call it, she's not delivering. Like, right now, that is bad. Like, how? I don't understand, for somebody that's supposed to be intelligent, because I've never seen her as somebody that lacks any type of intelligence. On the contrary,
No, she's very smart, like a very, very smart person.
What's the plan? So what's the plan? I don't understand how this is playing in her favor. I don't understand what she's doing right now.
Okay, well, a couple days ago, she was asked a question at a press conference about Jeffrey Rath and his push to elect some more people to the UCP board that are grassroots and pro-independence. And she sidestepped that question, but in her answer, she actually said that she'll take the mandate from the people. And currently, she ran her election not on separation. She ran it on being a unified Alberta within, or actually be a sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada. That's her current mandate. So I understand on the political level, she's got to do what her mandate was, what she ran on, which was sovereign Canada within a unified, or sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada. However, in the same answer, she also said the citizens are going to have a vote on this, and if they vote to do independence, that will be her new mandate, and then she would support it. So in a roundabout way, she basically said it's up to the voters on what she needs to do. She's currently on the mandate of sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. But if that changes through a citizen's vote, then she will absolutely follow the new mandate. So a lot of people are looking at that as support for independence. I wouldn't call it as much as support. I would call it very political. She's politicking. If the people vote for it, then I will do it. But she won't take a position today. There is a rumor through Jeff Rath that she made a deal with Carney to temper down the independence movement for this MOU. If that's true, I don't know. I don't have any second source on that one. But I don't see the way she can temper down the independent movement at this stage. This MOU added more fuel to the fire, for sure. None of the 9 items that she asked for or demanded has happened. She did not get on the major projects list, which is what she said the Grey Cup deadline was for. And I do suspect she was hoping that the truth about the MOU would come out after the AGM, like we saw with the Bill of Rights at the last AGM last year. People learned about the Bill of Rights after the AGM. Some of us knew of it beforehand, just like this with the MOU. So I do suspect at this AGM, this will be the topic, the MOU, how it's not worth anything. It's not binding. It doesn't produce anything. And she now needs to kind of answer to her base again on why she isn't as strong as some of her talk was earlier in the year.
Is there a possibility of a vote of non-confidence? Is that something that could happen in Alberta?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways that could be done by her cabinet itself. That could be done by the legislature itself. And that also could be done through the party itself. If enough constituency associations get together, they can force a leader review. It doesn't have to be an official one like we saw last year. It could be one that's pushed through the party itself. That's one way to provide the confidence vote. Another one is inside the legislature itself. So the NDP, I'm sure, would be very, very willing to back any non-confidence motion there is, but they would need a few UCP MLAs to get that done. So if there was, and there is a group, about 4 to 8 MLAs that are not favorable to Danielle Smith, if they were to support that, and I believe this has been something that has been threatened in the past to Danielle Smith directly, if they were to support one, it would pass in the House or the legislature. So there's a couple ways to do it. There isn't a huge desire that I'm aware of to do that in the legislature, because that would basically hand the NDP the next election if the UCP crumbled like that. So there's a big push to try and keep the party together so the NDP do not win the next election. But internally in the party, as we heard Mitch Sylvester share with us yesterday, there's definitely the same people that voted Kenny out are the same people that are taking a second look at Danielle, paying very close attention to what's happening today at this press conference and what's going to be said at the AGM basically Friday and Saturday. So I'll be reporting from the AGM. We'll be covering whatever comes out of there. And this is going to be a very important one to her path as the leader of the UCP party. And by the way, Nico, there's some rumblings that there might be a snap election. I can see why politically she would do that. There's 14 recalls currently in the signature stage right now for MLAs. There's a lot more in the pipe. They're trying to go after 44 MLAs. It appears to be an NDP-backed initiative through the unions in Alberta to go ahead and try and do a bunch of recalls. There's also the rumblings of whether or not she should be the leader. And she needs to bring forward that referendum on separation. So there may be an early election in order to address all those issues. If she calls a general election, that will stop all the recall efforts. There's no point. There's an election coming. You won't change your leader right at the beginning of an election. So she would be the leader going into that election. And she could also bring forward the question onto the referendum at the same time as the election. So basically kill 3 birds with 1 stone. It may make sense because if she wins that election, which she'd have a lot of support for, because there's no way Alberta wants an NDP government, then she would also have her mandate, whether the referendum passes. If it does, well, then she needs to do that. If it doesn't, well, then she can continue her sovereign Alberta within the United Canada. This could be a way for her to kind of clean the slate, get another 4 years and a new mandate for Alberta. So I don't know. There's nothing coming out of the UCP party that says this. I'm just kind of looking at the tea leaves and what would politically work for her to stay as the leader and have a mandate would be to call an early election.
Do you see that being announced over the next 2 days or Friday or Saturday? Because that would be the perfect event to do it.
I think it would be after the report from Alberta Next Panel, because that's coming out in December. So she did the Alberta Next Panel. The report's coming out with the recommendations, and she might mix all of these referendum questions together in one big event. We'll see. But if the pressure out of the AGM this weekend is so hot, and they start talking about doing a leader review, then she may have to consider her options at that point, because she knows the temperature within the UCP party is not the direction she's in right now. So she's kind of conflicting with the party. But if the rumblings at this AGM are hot enough, and this could be why I think it's important to be there, is to take the temperature of the membership to see what they're saying today. If it's hot enough, she might have to consider her options there.
No matter how I look at this, it's not good. And I think you're
Mm.
bang on saying that she's going to need a snap election if she wants to remain the leader. Because this, to me, is going to piss off people that want to see a sovereign Alberta even more. You thought they were irritated before by being screwed by Ottawa for 10 years. They thought they had a leader that was ready to walk the path, and now they're discovering that they don't. That is not going to be good. And if you're saying that the same people that voted Kenny out are still there, and they might be looking at Daniel Smith and say, you're next. It's not good for her, and you're absolutely right. I think you're calling it bang on. It makes a whole lot of sense that she would use a snap election, which, by the way, I do not like that we're capable of doing that in Canada. The Liberals have used that for the past 10 years to call out elections right before they knew they were about to screw us. So they would call a snap election, get reelected, and then we'd forget by the time we vote again. We shouldn't be allowed to do that. It's such political bullshit. I don't like that. I don't think that should be allowed to do snap elections, but I think you're bang on. I think you're absolutely bang on.
Yeah, I think that from a political standpoint for her, this is the cleanest way to get through the next couple of years for sure, because first, you're going to be forcing the independence movement to put up or shut up, basically. Like, show up, vote, and have your say. And if it comes back as a no, well, then that question's off the table for a little while. She can focus on the rest of the mandates that she has, like get the Alberta pension plan, get the Alberta police, make sure that we start doing our own taxation, some of the other things that came out of the Alberta Next panel. This would be a clean slate for her. But if it does come up as a yes, then she's got her mandate there too. Then she'll have 4 years to become a transitional government and get us into an independent Alberta. So I'm kind of optimistic that in this case, a snap election might be helpful, because it only will take 3 of these recalls against them to drop the government. NDP would become government if 3 of the recalls are successful, because immediately the seat is vacated, and those seats are no longer then in the legislature until a by-election happens and new seats are filled. But it only takes 3 out of the 14. So that's a bit of a risk. Okay, it really is a bit of a risk. We saw $1 million come out of the BC Teachers Federation to go to the Alberta Teachers Association to help fund and fight against Bill 2. And this is what the recall effort has stated is their goal, is to fight against Bill 2, which was a notwithstanding clause being used on the teachers to put them back into the schoolrooms. So there's $1 million war chest funding this recall effort, it looks like. There's a very coordinated effort. They got a website kind of coordinate all of this. So the chances of them actually succeeding at 3 of the recalls might be high enough for Danielle and the rest of her team to be looking at stopping that whole effort by having a general election.
So for the people out there that might not be aware of this, the people out there that might not be from Alberta, what do you mean by the recalls?
So if you go look at operationtotalrecall.ca, it's a website where they targeted 44 MLAs that voted in favor of Bill 2, which was a notwithstanding clause to be invoked to put the teachers back in the classroom. And currently 14 of the recalls have already gone through and been approved for signature collection. So they have, I think, 90 days to go ahead and collect the required signatures. If they get to the required signatures and they're validated, that seat gets vacated. There isn't a step where there's like an election on it. It gets vacated, and then a by-election could be called. And when it's vacated, that literally means there's no member for that riding in the legislature anymore, which will reduce the UCP numbers by 1. If they're successful at 3 of those, the balance goes to NDP. NDP now has the votes in the legislature. They can do a non-confidence like right away and then be able to pass it. Like there's a lot of things they can pull off pretty quick. So it's a very serious risk. And that's why one of the top reasons why I think there may be a snap election, because that will stop all recalls. There's no point to recall if there's an election. So you'll have the people vote whether or not they want to remove that MLA. Daniel Smith also said through the grapevine, and I believe publicly, that all nominations will be open for this next one for all CAs, which means if somebody wants to run against the MLA, the incumbent, they can. They're going to protect none of the ridings, which is a good thing. That's democracy in action. So we may see a whole bunch of new faces running for the UCP party in a next general election. We'll see. But I think this will be politically a good move for her because it will give the independence movement the chance to have their say, and it stops the recalls, and it will also stop any leadership change inside of the UCP, because there's no way you can have a leadership change happen at the same time as an election. You need to bunker down, be strong, be united, and go ahead and prepare for the general. So for those three reasons, I think we may be seeing something happen this spring.
And people would forget. People have short memories, right? So they would forget a whole election would make people forget what's going on right now. They would forget about the MOU. They would forget about her kind of, because from an outside perspective, like as an outsider looking in, today is her siding with Mark Scarney. This is all I'm seeing. She was very friendly, big smile. They did their little, all that we're missing is, oh, there we go. She's on right now. Let's listen to
Let's
what
go
she
ahead and
has
check
to
this
say.
out.
Well, hello, my friends. Good morning, everyone. I hope you enjoyed hearing the comments of the Prime Minister this morning. I was pleased he was able to pop up and see you before going on to some of his other meetings today, as well as a speech at the Chamber. I'm so delighted to be here with not only members of my cabinet, but also our partners in Indigenous communities. We've got Rebecca Schultz, Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rajan Sani, Minister of Indigenous Relations, Jason Nixon, Minister of Assisted Living and Social
Was that a
Services,
land
who is
acknowledgement?
part of our negotiating team, Nathan Neudorf, Minister of Affordability and Utilities, Minister Brian Jean, Minister of Energy and Minerals, and then
I
of
would have
course we
missed it.
have
I don't
Billy
think I
Moran,
heard that.
former chief, but he's now MP for Edmonton
She's
Northwest.
thanking the
Former
people
Chief
that are
Jim Boucher of
representing
Mackay
the
First
native
Nation,
individuals.
Chris
It's
Sankey,
like, see,
former
she's still
councillor
going.
of Lax Colam,
Well, these are all
and
members of
British
her
Columbia,
cabinet too, though.
Dave Lamouche, President of Métis Settlement
But is that an
General
equivalent
Council,
of a land
Theodore
acknowledgement?
Kent Jr.
I'm
of
being
Alexander First
facetious.
Nation, Chief Tony Alexis of Alexander Nico Lagan Nation, Chief Cody Thomas of Enoch Cree Nation, Chief Kelsey Jacko of Cold Lake First Nations. We also have a friend visiting from Saskatchewan, Chief Delbert Wapas of Thunderchild First Nation, and of course Stephen Buffalo, President and CEO of the Indian Resource Council. We had a few others on the list. I'm not sure that they are here, but I'm going to see more at the Indian Resource Council meeting a little bit later today, where I'm going to go for a lunch speech. But today is a great day for the people of Alberta and for all of Canada. The last 10 years have been an extremely difficult time for hundreds of thousands of Albertans and their families that directly or indirectly rely on and make their living from a strong and vibrant and growing Alberta oil and gas sector. These Albertans are mothers and fathers and young people working so hard to put food on the table, to pay for hockey and soccer fees, and to save for the down payment on their first home. These are also small business owners that too often have found themselves as well in their business working very hard to build due to a regulatory environment that has made it almost impossible for them to succeed. And more broadly, the last 10 years have left hundreds of thousands of Albertans skeptical and oftentimes questioning the long-term viability of our nation as we watched its deliberate phase-out of our province's most valuable asset, leaving it trapped and wasted in the vast oil sands of northern Alberta, and with it, innumerable lost investment opportunities and tens of thousands of lost jobs. These were dark times, but in those difficult circumstances, Albertans came together, as we always do, to raise our voices and use our ingenuity to find a way to overcome the challenge. We fought and won in the courts of law. We fought and won in the court of public opinion. And we fought because we had to, because that's what Albertans do. We always fight very hard for this province that we love so dearly and for its incredible people. But Albertans are also proud and loyal Canadians. We don't fight for the sake of fighting. We don't look for conflict when there's an opportunity for peace and prosperity. Albertans are happiest when we are hard at work getting things done, solving problems, creating opportunities, building our province and our country. That is when we are truly at our best. However, in order for Alberta to find its way to prosperity within a united Canada, we need the federal government to partner with us instead of fighting against us. Now, Prime Minister Mark Carney and I may not always agree on everything, but we do share a few key beliefs. We both know that Canada can never reach its true potential as a global energy superpower without a strong and thriving Alberta energy sector at the center of that effort. And I am pleased to say that this Prime Minister has made it clear to me that he is willing to work with me and Alberta's government to accomplish that shared goal. And that, my friends, is something that we have not seen from a Canadian Prime Minister in over a decade. And it is my firm belief that Albertans from right across the political spectrum, whether they be staunch federal Conservatives or Liberals or New Democrats or something else, they expect me as their Premier to partner with this federal government to seize this long-awaited opportunity for our province. I've spoken at length about the need to build more pipeline infrastructure, to export more oil to hungry Asian markets, and to diversify our customer base. I have repeatedly stated how critical it is to reform a broken regulatory environment that is scaring away investment and demoralizing our energy entrepreneurs here at home. And I have asked repeatedly for the federal government to cease their attempts to throttle our energy industry, repeal or overhaul their 9 bad laws, and work with Alberta to grow our energy sector for the benefit of the entire country. And today's agreement is the first step in accomplishing all of these critical objectives and unleashing the power and promise of Alberta's energy sector in a way never seen before in this country. This agreement means the end of the punitive oil and gas emissions caps so that our great energy producers can grow and thrive again. This agreement means the immediate suspension of the federal net zero power regulations in Alberta, which had placed our electrical grid at a very serious risk of failure and limited any hope of substantial investment in AI data centers and applications development. This agreement includes a clear path to the construction of an over 1 million barrel per day Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline to Asian markets so that our province and our country are no longer dependent on just one customer to buy our most valuable resource. This agreement also allows for needed adjustments to the tanker ban when the new pipeline to Asia is approved by the Major Projects Office, as well as amendments that will ensure our companies are able to advertise their environmental leadership and efforts throughout the world without a fear of penalty. And this agreement also means that Alberta will be a world leader in the development and implementation of emissions reduction infrastructure, particularly in carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Alberta has a unique opportunity to show the entire world that the solution for reducing emissions does not entail capping productivity, growth, or innovation in oil and gas development. Rather, it is to leverage the profitability of the oil and gas sector to invest in the very technologies that will revolutionize all industries in their effort to reduce emissions globally. This agreement means Alberta will work with our federal partners and the Pathways companies to commence and complete the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage infrastructure project. It will also make Alberta heavy oil the lowest intensity barrel on the market and displace millions of barrels of heavier emitting fuels around the globe. This is Alberta's moment of opportunity. Our opportunity to show the nation, as well as the entire world, that resource development and emissions reduction can not only coexist, but can actually complement one another for the benefit of billions of people around the world. Alberta is willing to take on and conquer the challenge as partners with the federal government. Now, I need to be clear, the government is just, this agreement with the government is just the first step in this journey. There is much more hard work to be done. Trust must be built and earned in the partnership as we move through the next steps of this process, whether that be working with the federal government to prepare our bitumen pipeline submission for the Major Projects Office, or putting together the final elements of a carbon pricing agreement that will be implemented through the province's tier program that balances competitiveness with accountability for heavy emitters. And although I am not blind to the fact that the people of Alberta have had the rug pulled out from underneath them too many times to count over the past 10 years, I also know that a new relationship and a new beginning needs a starting point grounded in good faith. And today, I hope, is that new starting point. So I do want to thank the Prime Minister. So I do want to thank the Prime Minister as well as his team for working with my team to get this agreement to the finish line. I'd also like to thank our negotiating team, and that included Ministers Jason Nixon and Rajan Sawhney, along with my Chief of Staff, Rob Anderson, and Deputy Ministers Liam Stone and Larry Comeyer for the great work that they did on this initiative. And I'm excited, as is my government and our UCP MLAs, to roll up our sleeves and to continue the work on this remarkable opportunity for Alberta and for Canada. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions. Thank you. Thanks so much. Now, I think
Thank
Sam
you,
Blackett is
Premier.
somewhere moderating questions. Oh, there he is.
Yes,
Over
we'll
in the
now
back.
start the
Moderated
Q&A.
questions.
We are tight in time today. We'll be taking one question, one follow-up per usual. Please state your name and outlet before asking your question, and we'll start off at our mic.
Can't believe what I'm hearing, Jason. I really can't believe this.
Yeah, no, I got my comments ready to go.
Question. What is your view, Premier, of the power of BC or a First Nation to veto a potential pipeline deal? The MOU talks a lot about consultation, but what happens if an agreement can't be reached?
Well, as you can see, the MOU does not contain a veto, but I think that we both recognize jointly that there is a requirement for consultation. And indeed, we believe that there's an imperative for Indigenous ownership. We created the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation, and it expanded its ability to underwrite up to $3 billion worth of loan guarantees. I see British Columbia also has a similar program. The federal government has a similar program. And so Minister Sawhney has already begun the engagement. She's been to Kitimat, she's been to Prince Rupert, she's been talking with the BC and Alberta nations. And we know that that's hard work that needs to be done, that we will do, we intend to do, and we're looking forward to having genuine consultation and ownership. And as for Premier Eby, I spoke with him last night, and there's lots in the agreement that we can focus on together, where he is supportive of the expansion of the Trans Mountain pipeline capacity. He is supportive of Intraties and working with us on nuclear. He's supportive of working with us on expanding additional LNG export as well as ammonia. So may not be in agreement with everything that is in this proposal, but we're going to have trilateral talks to make sure that we can move forward on the elements in this plan.
And my follow-up, do you think this MOU will be enough to distinguish, quell any remaining separatist sentiment that may remain in Alberta?
I hope so. I mean, I had always felt that the former government of Justin Trudeau created the independence movement, and my first conversations with Prime Minister Mark Carney were that he could end it. He could take the wind out of it. Because we saw this once before. We saw that independence sentiment was very high in the early 1980s when there was the National Energy Program. But when Brian Mulroney came in and reversed that policy, it disappeared. So I would say that good policy and genuinely addressing the concerns of Albertans is always a pathway to have a good and solid relationship. And I think the Prime Minister understands that. Certainly, based on this agreement, it shows he does, and so I'm hopeful.
Thanks.
Hi, Premier. Ezra Levant from Rebel News. The first deadline in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, is April, where the duty is on Alberta to jack up carbon taxes. And the last date in the MOU, if I'm reading it right, correct me if I'm not, is 2040. That's when this pipeline, that's sort of the end date. It can't be any later than that. In terms of building trust with the anti-oil liberals, they're asking Alberta to raise carbon taxes now for a promise of an oil pipeline years or even more than a decade in the future. Does that really build trust?
Well, you have to start somewhere. And one thing I would say is that we did have the Supreme Court of Canada rule on the federal government's ability to set a price on emissions. So the Supreme Court has ruled on that. It's part of the reason why we negotiated a stringency agreement that would have seen the carbon tax price go up to $170 a barrel by 2030. we've demonstrated, and I think the Prime Minister agrees, that's too high, too fast. So that's why we understand that there was always going to be a negotiation around that. We froze the carbon tax at $95, pending consultation with the industry and greater work with the Prime Minister. But remember, Alberta was the first to have an industrial carbon price. They did we implemented that in 2007. It's generated revenues that have allowed us to invest billions of dollars in new technologies, including carbon capture. So there is a commitment on the part of the industry to have a carbon price, and we did do some consultation on that. We're just glad that we have the means to manage it our way in Alberta under our TIER program, and you'll see as of April 1st, and no, that wasn't a joke. April 1st is going to be the date that we have an agreement on that front. When it comes to the building of a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets to the BC coast. Though, if you read the MOU, those two things have to happen in tandem. That we have to see the Pathways project proceeding at the same time as an agreement to build that. One is dependent on the other. I don't know that the Prime Minister would have agreed to a new bitumen pipeline without Pathways, and we wouldn't have agreed to Pathways without a new bitumen pipeline. So they are going to be staged. They are going to go on together. We've already had a meeting with Pathways about how we're going to do that. That will require a trilateral negotiation as well. But I'm very hopeful. Since we have used carbon capture technology before for enhanced oil recovery, that's another part of this announcement, is that CO2 will be able to be used for enhanced oil recovery, which should allow us to generate more revenue. So I would say that you don't always get 100% of what you want, but we addressed 7 out of the 9 bad laws that I'd put on the table to, I think, what will be the satisfaction of Albertans. And I think that this will allow us to see some substantial investments.
I mean, that's the thing about a peace deal. You have to make it with an enemy. So I suppose the fact that for a decade, his Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, it was about putting a capital strike on the oil and gas sector. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was asked about pipelines, and he said, boring. So is there anything, I mean, after a lifetime of attacking the oil patch, he was even interrogated by the U.S. Congress for an attempt to capital strike their oil companies. Is there anything the Prime Minister has said to you in private that you could share with us that would signal that his lifetime's work of attacking carbon-based fuels will somehow be put to the side? Like, I think he's just a slightly smarter version of Stephen Guilbeault. I think he hates the oil patch as his life's work. Is there anything he's said to you that make you believe that maybe he can be turned on this?
Well, I'll start by saying my joke has been that I would love for pipelines to be boring again. I would love for, no matter what party is in power, what level of government, that there wasn't sort of an overwrought response anytime anyone talked about building a pipeline. It's actually quite remarkable that we're talking about expanding uranium mines, building nuclear power plants, building new transmission lines through pristine areas, massive new mining projects, and not one of them has raised any ire on the part of any environmental group or anyone in the media, but there has been all of this ire raised around a pipeline. So I hope that we can make pipelines boring again, because it's just a way to get our product to the consumers who need it. I would say that, as you know, I was not a huge champion of carbon capture technology when I was in politics the first time. I wasn't. But I've seen, with the passage of time, the investments being made and the fact that the technology works and we're getting better and better at it, and you can create a product out of it, including so that you can enhance oil recovery. I changed my mind. And so I would say that the Prime Minister, maybe in the past 10 years, it looked like wind and solar and batteries were going to be the ability to power industrial economies. I think the world discovered that's not true. With the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with the instability in the Middle East, everyone is having to recalibrate and rethink that. I was recently in the Middle East, and the conversation around the table now is talking about natural gas as a foundational fuel, not a transition fuel. So I think that demonstrates that there is a global understanding of how important it is to have reliable electricity. And so I have to just give the Prime Minister credit for perhaps he's recalibrating his own thinking on this. It certainly seems to be in the agreement that we signed, but we will trust, but we will verify. We will make sure that he lives up to the commitments in this agreement that we had, and we have to proceed somewhere with a measure of good faith. I can tell you 100% that the former Prime Minister would never have moved this far on these issues. We tried for 3 years, we got nowhere. And in my very first meeting with the Prime Minister, I said to him, you know, the way that we can get to an agreement is just orienting around a 2050 target. Our industry is there. We think it's achievable with technology. And you'll see in the context of this MOU that the interim targets are gone. And so that's what we're going to move forward on. And we'll see as we meet these milestones whether I'm correct or whether your skepticism is correct.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ezra.
Thanks, Ezra.
We're going to take one more from the room, then take one or two from the phones before coming back to the room. Go ahead.
Hi, Premier. Laura Osmond with The Logic. When it comes to trying to find a proponent for this pipeline, is this MOU enough to start bringing private investment on board, or in your conversations with potential proponents, are they
Non-binding.
looking to get farther down the line? At what point do you think you might be able to announce some kind of proponent taking over?
Well, I think that the fact that this room filled up with, I think, 24 hours notice gives you an idea of the enthusiasm that we have in the sectors that make billion-dollar investment decisions. And many of the people in this room have been holding on to capital or redeploying it elsewhere. So I think that's going to cause a lot of really interesting conversations now that they've seen the structure of this agreement. And we'll know in the coming weeks and months, generally speaking, about final investment decisions. But I've been encouraged to see that even with the announcement in the budget that they were looking at not implementing the emissions cap, which we confirm today, you've seen Enbridge talk about 400,000 barrels a day on their main line that they want to expand. TMX has talked about an additional 400,000 barrels per day that they want to optimize. South Bow, using the old Keystone assets, have talked about a 650,000 barrel a day project. I've been in touch, the folks from the St. Lawrence Seaway Group have been in touch with me saying, can we get oil to Thunder Bay so that we can get it out on tankers to markets in Europe. We have oil by rail projects being talked about going all the way to Nova Scotia and being exported out of Sydney. I'm watching with great interest as Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew negotiates an economic corridor co-owned with First Nations, and whether there's an opportunity for us to also be able to have a pipeline go there and also reach European markets. Doug Ford and I signed an MOU about perhaps having a spur line going to James Bay with a similar kind of model. So all of those projects are now going to be able to go ahead because there is not going to be an emissions cap on our production. And in the meantime, because I think our biggest opportunity is a new market, a new pipeline to get to markets in Asia, I'll be spending a lot of time working on that. So we have, I think, 20 individuals at our table giving us advice from all of the big pipeline companies who have over 100 years, I think, of expertise, more than that, I think, combined in doing these kinds of big projects. And in the end, you'll see the MOU says that we want a private proponent to build that. I don't think it would be success if we have to have the federal government once again have to pay for an overpriced expensive pipeline. I think we want to create the conditions so that the private sector has confidence and will build it. So that's what we're working towards. We knew we needed to get through these first few phases, but I'm pretty confident with the people we have at the table that one or a consortium of them, once we establish that it is on the major projects list, will be willing to take this on.
You have mentioned that it's a long road. You still have to build trust. You've had the rug pulled out from you before. Pipeline aside, is the changes to the emissions cap and the clean energy regulations enough, do you think, to increase oil production in Alberta and improve the investment environment here?
Well, I think almost certainly. The problem with the emissions cap is that, especially with the interim targets of 2030 and 2035, the only way to achieve that, because we wouldn't have been able to build the carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or the fuel variety like nuclear, or have advanced direct air capture. The only way to achieve them would be to shut in production. And it wasn't just us saying that. There's several different reports that went out saying as much as 2 million barrels a day would have to be shut in by 2035. So we now have a longer time horizon to address the issues of emissions. We've a big change is that we're going to have a look at heavy oil on the basis of emissions intensity compared to other heavy barrels around the world. That is also, I think, going to be a major confidence booster. And then on the other side, when I was recently in the Middle East, I talked to a company, Taka, that had talked about wanting to do an AI data center. They were going to build their own natural gas power, but they told me because of the clean electricity regs, which meant they'd have to turn it off in 2035, they didn't even get started. And I have to wonder how many other projects of that nature didn't even get started because of the clean electricity regs. So now that there's an immediate suspension of that, there will, of course, be pending our agreement on what the tier pricing will be. But there has always been a carbon price on heavy emitters, and that included in the electricity sector. So I think we'll be able to give that injection of confidence. I guess we'll know in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. We're going to go to the phones for one and then come back to the room for our last one. Operator, could you put through our first caller, please?
Your first caller comes from the line of Ryan Tumilty from Toronto Star. Your line is now open.
Yeah, good afternoon, Premier. Thanks for taking the question. You know, the MOU sets out obligations on both Alberta and the government. If the government of Canada lives up to its obligations, but a private proponent doesn't emerge for the bitumen pipeline, is Alberta still committed to increasing its carbon price and the other commitments that you've made on pathways and other projects?
Well, as I said, we have always had a carbon price. We were the first to put one in place in 2007. We have just recently made changes to tier to allow those revenues to be recycled back to companies so that they can invest in carbon capture technology. We have put in place our ACIP program, which is our carbon capture incentive program, where we rebate 12% of the cost of any investment in carbon capture. We've got a major center in central Alberta where 10 different direct air capture projects are underway. We have signed agreements not only with the federal government but with our fellow premiers on looking at how we would add nuclear to the grid. So all of those things are underway. All of those things will continue to go. And what we're very hopeful is that as we stage gate the development of a bitumen pipeline, we'll also do the same thing with the Pathways project. And then we'll be able to have the largest carbon capture project in the world, which I think will also be another major export opportunity for us. So I would say that we showed our commitment when we released our energy development and emissions reduction plan in April of 2023. And most of the elements that we announced then, you'll see are enshrined in this agreement that we have today.
And then the coastal First Nations, especially, but certainly BC as well, have said so far publicly, they said they really don't support this pipeline. It seems like the MOU puts bringing those people on side in your court. Can you expand upon how you intend to do that and how you intend to see that happens?
Well, I can tell you that there are some leadership in some nations that have been vocal, absolutely. But as you can see, there are some leaders of some nations that are in this room supportive as well. And that's the nuance that happens. That will be, no matter whether it's a nation or whether it's a province or whether it's a political party, there's just different opinions on things. But what this agreement shows is that we're going to work collaboratively to work towards a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets on the West Coast. And when we arrive at a port, that will also have a tanker ban carve-out for that. So I would say that my Indigenous Relations Minister is doing tremendous work on doing the initial engagement, which will ultimately lead to a more formal consultation process. We're beginning with a spirit of goodwill, having had some success with our AIOC. I think that demonstrates credibility in having a meaningful equity ownership stake. And we've had very constructive meetings. I had a very constructive meeting, you may have read, with the Haisla chief and council and others yesterday, where they may not be 100% behind a bitumen pipeline, but they're excited about LNG export. They wanted us to make sure that we knew that Kitimat is a thriving port for all kinds of commodities. And so I think that that's where the relationship begins. Let's talk about areas of agreement, and then let's work through the areas of disagreement. But I think that we will find over time that there are many nations who are also interested in these kinds of projects so they can bring prosperity to their people. And that's our starting point on this.
Thank you. And if you're really quick, Premier, we might be able to squeeze in 2 more. Okay. We'll go to our next to the mic.
Sheila Gunn-Reid with Rebel News. Just staying on the topic of British Columbia, the Prime Minister has said in the House of Commons just 2 days ago, we believe the government of British Columbia has to agree. Now, just now, after he left the signing with you, his press release says these projects will only be built in consultation and partnership with Indigenous rights holders and British Columbia. So what is the real strength of this MOU when you have a partner who keeps giving veto to British Columbia?
Well, you'll see in the agreement there's no mention of veto. I think that there obviously has to be trilateral discussions with British Columbia to find areas of common ground, and I think we will. And there's also clearly going to have to be a formal consultation process with Indigenous bands, and we're prepared to do all of that. What I have seen is that there have been a number of projects in British Columbia that may have started off with a lot of opposition that over time got a lot of enthusiasm. Look at all of the LNG projects down the coast. Look at Coastal GasLink. Look at the opportunity now for additional LNG projects. Look at even the Premier of British Columbia talking about expanding TMX. That was not the conversation that was happening 5 or 6 years ago. So I would say that some of it is in the proving. You have to prove that you're here, you're listening, prove that you are being genuine in the consultation, genuine in addressing the environmental and other issues that are raised. And that's what we intend to do. We intend to be involved every step of the way to make sure that we're able to bring people on board with this. But it's a process. We know it. This is the first stage of it. But having the Prime Minister agree in principle that getting 1 million additional barrels to Asian markets is a good thing for us and for Canada, I think that's a major milestone.
Now, British Columbia, however, says that they're blindsided. They say they're considering a lawsuit, which could tie up any potential private sector proposal for years. It might even act as a deterrent to a private sector pipeline proposal. Has the Prime Minister given you any assurances that he would use constitutional means like the notwithstanding clause to prevent a proposed project from getting bogged down in a legal quagmire for years?
Well, I don't think he needs to use the notwithstanding clause because this is federal jurisdiction. Trans-border pipelines, trans-border infrastructure, ports, those are all federal jurisdiction. And I think that British Columbia has tried to use every tool in the toolbox, I guess was the term that they used before, and failed. It was clearly affirmed by the courts that this is not British Columbia's decision to make. That being said, we understand that there's a process we have to go through. We understand that Indigenous partnership is key to that. And so we are wanting to get the project to a point where it's on the major projects list, at which point there's a 2-year window to get to approval. So we've got our work to do over the next number of months, but that's the commitment on the part of the federal government, is that once something is on the major projects list, it will have a new approach so that it can be approved in 2 years. And again, trust but verify, we're going to hold them to that.
Thank you. And yes, we have time for one last question. Just keep it quick, please, and thank you.
Hi, Premier Matt Skase with the Globe and Mail. This MOU talks about working collaboratively with companies to get CCUS built. How are you going to bring those 3 parties together, government, CCUS companies, and obviously there's a carbon capture incentive right now to support the project at the 12%. Are you going to change that formula at all?
So a couple of things. We have already demonstrated how we're going to support the project on our end. The 12% rebate on capital costs, that's our investment tax credit. But the recycling of the tier revenues, that's really significant because the pipeline companies in Pathways, or pardon me, the production companies in Pathways Group, they already pay, I think, $300 to $400 million in carbon tax fees through the industrial carbon tax. Having them be able to recycle those back to dedicate to this kind of project, that's our commitment. So that was a change that we made on consultation with the industry. The remaining is going to be coming from the federal government. They've got a 50% ITC. And the main thing that we were able to agree to with Ottawa is if you're going to have a project that is going to cost substantial dollars, you need to have a new revenue stream to pay for it. So if in the end the Pathways projects cost $10 to $20 billion, but they're also earning $20 billion a year for the next 20 or 30 or 40 years, that becomes a more viable project for those companies. If it's just a cost on them with no additional hope of revenue, that was what they were facing. Now that we can see these two things go together, I'm pretty confident we'll come up with a trilateral agreement where the federal government will take a part. We'll obviously allow the pipeline companies or the production companies to keep more of what they earn, and then they will also put forward a portion of the cost.
This also comes with complete carve-out for Alberta on the clean energy regs, removing greenwashing provisions. Do you feel like Alberta is a winner in these negotiations?
Well, I can tell you I had a pretty happy caucus when we talked about it yesterday. So I would say that we put on the table what it is that we wanted to achieve. And I talked about the nine bad laws. And let me just go through them so that you know why it is we're feeling like this is a win for Alberta. First of all, one of the things I wanted was no export taxes or restrictions on Alberta oil and gas. Well, we got that. A complete redo of C-69. Well, not only are we going to get that through the Major Projects Office, but we have an agreement that intra-provincial projects are going to be approved by us. And there's going to be a rewrite of that bill. Emissions cap, gone. Carbon pricing stays provincial. We've got that. The clean electricity regulation scrap. We got that. Tanker ban carve-out. We got that. The censorship of energy, we got that. That's 7 out of 9. That's not so bad. We're gonna win them in court on the declaration of plastics as toxic. We already won round 1, so we're gonna keep on going so that we win that one too. And they have realized that their net zero cars are not going to work. They've already done a 1-year reprieve on that, and I suspect that's going to also have to be significantly modified or gone. So as you can see, these are the things I put on the table and have for years. And we finally have a partner in Ottawa that has recognized that the policies are unworkable, impractical, damaging to Canada, damaging to Alberta. And I think this agreement is the first step in being able to correct 10 bad laws, or 9 bad laws over 10, I think, years where our economy was depressed. And it allows for us to make sure that we don't have a repeat over the next 10 years.
Thank you. And that'll conclude today's press conference. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
What a joke that was. I cannot believe what I just heard. I have a page of notes and it's just every single thing I wrote, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. What was this, Daniel Smith? Or was it somebody that took her place and put a mask on to look like her? This is insane. I can't believe what I just heard.
Okay, so yeah, we'll echo a lot of what you had to say there, Nico. I think, and this is going to be pretty tough for some people to hear, I think Carney just maneuvered her into early retirement. I don't think she's going to continue to be the leader of Alberta after this one. The UCP, her caucus, might be pleased a bit, but I don't think the UCP membership is going to be giving in on carbon taxes. Let me just bring up a couple of things here. I kind of got my stuff a little ready here for you. I just want to give everybody what the definition of MOU is. Okay, so MOU mostly commonly stands for Memorandum of Understanding, which is a document outlines an agreement between 2 or more parties, but it's typically not legally binding. It expressed a mutual understanding and serves as a starting point for negotiations, clarifying the goals, expectations, and responsibilities of each party before a formal binding contract is created. Key characteristics of an MOU: non-binding. An MOU is usually not legally enforceable, meaning parties cannot take each other to court for failing to fulfill its terms. Intention-based. It demonstrates the intention of the parties to work together or proceed with a transaction. Establishes a framework. It sets a roadmap for a partnership or project, outlining goals, responsibilities, and expectations. First step in negotiations. It often acts as a primary step before drafting a formal and binding contract, and then formal but less strict. It is more formal than alternative and verbal agreements, but less formal than a legal contract. One of the things I think that's really going to hurt her is this. The carbon capture project that she's talking about, okay? So Saskatchewan's been doing this for quite some time. She was very optimistic about it, saying, hey, look, I saw the technology. It's looking great. Saskatchewan's been trying to do this for a while, piloting it. And this is CBC even, of all places, kind of reported on this. But let me read you a line out of here. We don't think carbon capture works as well as industry and promoters claim, said David Schnetzels, an analyst who wrote a report for the Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, an international nonprofit agency. We don't think it's as good use of money to keep coal-fired power plants running. So if you go through this article, basically Saskatchewan has tried and failed, okay, completely failed on carbon capture. So I think her base is going to be very displeased. And one more thing I'm going to say on this, Nico, before I throw it to you, is at the end when she listed off the 7 wins that she thinks she's got out of the 9, she kept saying, we won that one. We got that one. No, you don't. It's an MOU. First thing that you got to do is come up with all the private money. You got to get BC to agree. You got to get First Nations to agree. You got to agree to do carbon tax starting April 1st. And then if everything lines up, then they'll start carving out things in the regulations to make this possible. I do not see that happening. And the deadline, as Ezra Levant put it, 2040. I don't think this is going to appease anybody. And I think the big giveaway here, Nico, was the first question. Do you think this is going to take the wind out of the sails of separatists? And she says, I hope so. No, unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to do it for you, because you just brought back carbon tax. You literally just brought back carbon tax, and you called it a win by saying, well, it's on provincial level now, just like BC's been doing. BC does it on a provincial level.
So does Quebec.
So, you brought back carbon tax. I think he outmaneuvered her, took the wind out of her sails, and just destroyed her career. I think politically, this is going to be very damning for her. And Nico, I do want to let you know, she mentioned Rob Anderson, her chief of staff. I may have him on the show Friday. So next Friday, a week from tomorrow, he may be on the show. So if he does confirm, because he said he's got to go get permission to come on, if he does confirm, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this negotiation with Ottawa and how they see it as a win. But I even Ezra Levant, I had to agree with him on some of this stuff. And by the way, Ezra and Danielle goes back all the way to university days. They're friends. So, those are softballs compared to what I'm sure a lot of us wanted to ask. For sure. And that's also why he got 4 questions, 2 from him and 2 from his other reporter. But look, I do not see this working with her base at all. And I actually think if there's going to be another leader that steps up, he or she's going to run on, I'm going to rip up this MOU. Like, this is such a bad MOU that they're going to run against her on that. So we'll see where this goes. But I didn't see the wins. The only thing that I think was genuinely truthful about what she had to say was, this is a step in the right direction, but it's a very small baby step that doesn't translate into prosperity for Alberta anytime soon. And I doubt it ever will. And also, she's naive. I'm thinking that Carney's changing his opinion on carbon. Not a chance. His entire career is built on eliminating carbon from oil. So good luck with that.
You're so soft. You're a lot softer than I am, because this, I cannot believe that this was Danielle Smith. What a show she's put on for the past year. If this was intended to play like this, if that's what an ultimatum becomes a win, she lied. Because this is not a win. There's nothing winning about this. She talked about carbon capture. She talked about carbon reduction. She talked about carbon tax, even raising the carbon tax. We just can't do it right now because we couldn't get away with it. She talked about how those taxes can be used to reinvest in technology. We don't need the technology in the first place, so why reinvest the money at all? You're literally asking taxpayers' money they're already paying on average 42.3% of their income to some type of tax on the federal, provincial, or municipal level to pay even more. She talked about Russian invasion of Ukraine. What the fuck did that have to do with anything? That is virtue signaling. I never thought I would hear Danielle Smith virtue signaling, somehow putting the Russia-Ukrainian war that we should not be part of as part of the conversation. And all I could think when she was talking is that she's becoming the type of conservative that Doug Doughboy Ford is. Like just a mascot for Prime Minister Mark Carney. Because she asked Albertan to trust him. So here's more carbon tax. We need to develop the technology to capture carbon. And you know what, guys? I've been talking to Carney from the beginning since he became PM. We need to trust him. Are you fucking serious? Like, what? Have you been smoking crack with Doug Ford? Because I don't get this one. Like, this is absolutely insane. You look at Pathways. She wants to trust Pathways. You do realize that Brookfield is heavily invested in carbon capture, right? They're not part of Pathways, but what they own is even bigger than Pathways. You don't think that they did that on purpose, not to play their hands from the get-go? Let Pathways have this one, and then we'll get the next one. Even Rebel News was soft on her. Like, that was insane. Can you imagine if an NDP premier would have said what she said today? Just change Daniel Smith for that brown guy. I never remember what his name is, but change them, and imagine that he said that instead of her. He would have ripped him apart. As in, what world do you live in where adding carbon tax and carbon capture makes us more competitive on the world market? You want to go you want to go compete with markets that don't put any taxes. So we're going to compete with the US on the world stage that they scrap. They have no carbon tax. They don't care about capture either. How is that going to work? She literally repeated, not word for word in her own words, what Mark Carney said a few months ago, where he said that having a carbon tax makes us more competitive on the world market. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Shooting yourself in the foot will make you faster when running 100-meter against world athletes. Of course. Like, what am I hearing? Am I the one that's still sleeping? Do I need to start smoking crack? Because I don't do drugs. But maybe I need to start, because this is insane. This is absolutely insane. And I really hope that she gets ripped apart over the next 2 days, because this is what I want to see. How are Daniel Smith's supporters going to support her now? Because they're going to start making the same mental gymnastic that they have to do in order to support Pierre Poilievre. You know, the conservatives out there that support Pierre Poilievre to this day, this is what Daniel Smith supporters are going to have to become. Just mental gymnastic to support her, because this was bullshit. This was not in the favor of Alberta at all. I can't believe what I just heard.
It's very difficult to defend this particular position by her. I'm going to try a little bit, Nico. Okay, I'm going to try a little bit.
I'm always the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. You're the good guy. So please do it.
If she went to Ottawa and she said, "Look, I need to get something. I need to have a little bit of something," this was it. This was as little bit as you can get and come back. I do not think that she has the ability to convince her base that this was a win at all. I was listening attentively, and when she started to compare BC's LNG and like, oh, look, they're expanding LNG and they're very favorable to LNG. Yeah, they are. They always have been, but not oil. And it was very clear out of the Indigenous group. The letter yesterday said, look, if you want to do LNG, we're on board. But if you want to do oil, not a chance. And she even implied that the Premier of BC will change his opinion on oil through trilateral negotiations, which means federal, provincial, 3 parties. Not a chance. And then a couple of times she was asked, well, BC has veto. And she said, well, actually, if you look at the words in here, veto's not in here. It doesn't have to be. Veto is a process. It doesn't have to be the word. His ability to say no is enough. And then when she got pushed on that a bit by one of the reporters, she said, well, it's actually federal jurisdiction. He really can't say no. No, see what Carney was very clear about in the House is he's putting the decision onto First Nations and BC and stakeholders. He's actually given away his power completely. He's been very clear about that. And we heard that in this press conference. On his way out of that room, he said, no, BC and First Nations have all the power. Basically, it was the last statement says he left the room. That's correct. And that's exactly what he said before, too. This is, I think, a win for Carney. He was able to try and take some of the wind out of the sails for the movement. That's going to fail. But I think what he succeeded at doing is he just destroyed Danielle Smith's career. She is not going to be able to come back from this, in my opinion. And I don't think even caucus support's going to save her. I think she just created the campaign for somebody to run against her as leader of UCP. And basically all they have to say is no MOU, and they're going to become the leader of the UCP party. Because if that's their commitment, is to rip it up before April 1st, before carbon tax kicks in, then they're going to win the leadership. So I think we're a step closer to a snap election, even sooner than possibly than I thought before, because she's definitely probably realizing very quickly, and it will probably become very clear to her at this AGM, there's going to be somebody that stands up and says, no, that's it. I'm going to rip up this MOU. We're not going to do that. We're going to focus on independence and run against her as a leader for the UCP. And that's going to be the challenge she's going to be facing very quickly here. That's what I think. And I don't have any news on that. There's no sources on that. That's just my opinion and my gut after hearing what I just heard there. But I'm not able to find much silver lining here, Nico. 2040, if you do everything, you gave in completely. You're doing carbon capture, you're doing carbon tax. You have to be the one that brings in the investors. You have to do negotiations with all the partners. Like, all the balls are in Alberta's court to get this done. And these are all very heavy balls that can't be done. So I'm surprised. I am a little disappointed, but I'm not shocked. This is what we were expecting to hear. And I think he maneuvered her into early retirement, to be honest with you.
You know, there's a couple of things I need to say. I need to correct you on one thing. Carney did not end her career. She did. I'm just wondering how much money she made doing it, because that was on her. One thing that's very ironic is MOU in French, MOU, means soft. And that is exactly what I seen today. This was soft. It's the same thing my son leaves in his diaper every day. Very, very soft, smelly poop. There was nothing good about what I just heard. I'm baffled. I am baffled because I had, as much as she's a politician and I don't trust politicians as a whole, I still looked at her with hope, just to say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong and there's a politician out there that actually has some power that's ready to do what it needs to get done. And obviously, she just destroyed her career. I just hope she made money, that it was worth it. Because at the end of the day, the speech today made it sound like she sold Alberta to Ottawa. I cannot wait to see how Albertans are going to take this. If there's one meeting I would love to be part of, is the UGN you're going to. I would love to see how people feel about this, because it's not going to be pretty. For sure, if I'm that insulted as a Quebec dude that has no skin in the game whatsoever, outside of that's the only place in Canada I would actually live in. Man, I cannot wait to see how you. Oh yeah, it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I think we're going to hear a bunch of boos for sure. Yeah, and I'm disappointed because, but we knew this was coming, because she told me on the interview, the MOU, we're going to lay down some framework and some groundwork on this, and we're going to have to do some of the heavy lifting ourselves. And she was clear about that. But April 1st, April Fool's Day of all days too, to bring back the carbon tax, and your only argument on that as well, at least, is provincial, not federal now. And like, I think there's going to be a lot of people very, very, very disappointed already. I can feel it coming. So I'll keep you posted about the AGM. Starts tomorrow. I'll be there. I'll be observing, paying attention. I also get the vote, so I'll be doing that as well. But yeah, I was looking for it, Nico. I'm looking for the political advantage for her on this one, and I think she got outmaneuvered, and that's going to be enough. This is worse than Kenny. Okay, just remember, Kenny got taken out because he said vaccine passports might be a good idea. He didn't even implement them. He just said he may, and that was enough for him to be gone. This carbon tax coming back, nothing prosperity for 15 years. You got to get the permission of BC for it. Nobody's going to buy this one. They're going to be very upset.
It's insane. It's very rare that I don't have much to say, but in this case, I don't see how she's going to get away with this. I don't think she will at all. I think she just signed the end of her career. Mark Carney didn't do it for her. She did. And it's insane because all she had to say is no. You know what she could have done that would have been the biggest mic drop on the planet, is make it believe to Mark Carney that she will sign it. When he shows up there, she rips it right in his face. Walks away. That's it. No, you don't need to talk after that. Rip it away. fool him into coming to Alberta, into signing this, take his paper, look at him right in the face, rip it apart, leave. Do exactly what he just did. He showed up to sign a paper, smiled, didn't even say one word, didn't take one single question, left, and as soon as he left, he made sure to post about how Chris Sibby and the native bands still have power to say no to this. He made sure that the virtue signaling was still there. And man, I invite you to go back to the beginning. You know, at the beginning I was saying, wow, that sounds like a land acknowledgement. She literally went for like 3 minutes thanking all native people in her cabinet. Why the fuck does it matter? Why? So that to me, that's a land acknowledgement. She kissed the ring. Somebody in the comments said that earlier. It seems to me she kissed Mark Carney's ring. Man,
yeah, no,
crazy.
I think there's
absolutely nuts.
Yeah, this is like a battered woman saying, "I'm going to give him another shot. He promised me that he'll stop, but it's not a binding agreement or anything like that." It's like, yeah, no, he said he'll stop, so I'm going to try again. The only thing I can come back to, though, is she is kind of painted into a corner. There's not much she can do, and she's trying to scrape out some sort of W here, but I don't think it worked. I am thinking about it more as you're talking. Her only next political move is to call a snap election quickly before April 1st and make this the campaign. Do you guys want this MOU or not? And put the independent question on the referendum question forward, and just kind of let Alberta decide her path forward, whether it's a yes to independence or no, but go ahead with the MOU. I think that's her only political move at this stage. And if she doesn't go quick, there will be a push to remove her as a leader. I will bet almost anything on that one, because there was already a push before. It probably just got a lot stronger.
You know, man, you better post about this, because I'm going to post that, because I agree with you 1,000,000,000% that she's going to call a snap election. There's no other way for her
before
to
April 1st.
Unless she doesn't want to keep her seat, and that was the whole point. Because that could be another option, right?
No, I think if she called a snap election and won, and the independence vote came back as a no, she'll have everything she wants. She'll have 4 more years, she'll have a mandate, and she'll be able to move forward. There is enough anti-NDP sentiment to go ahead and support her if she is a leader in an election. So she will get the votes. There may be a new looking cabinet, though, because her comment about her cabinet was very pleased. We know which ones of that cabinet would be pleased. It'd be the Jason Kenney crew. So maybe through nominations, there would be a big push to remove them as well. I think on Sunday, I'm going to have a lot more concrete information for you, because the result of the board elections is going to say everything. If it's all the establishment people, then UCP itself is going to keep pushing forward with Danielle on the MOU. But if it ends up being all grassroots people elected to that board, then the membership has spoken and they will not support that MOU. So we'll actually have some more concrete information and decisions in the next couple of days on exactly what the UCP party is thinking about this.
You know what? I'm sending you an invitation right now. I want you to come on my show on Sunday and speak about this. If you're
on Sunday, it's going to be difficult on Sunday, simply because I'll be traveling and wrapping up the event. But Monday, I can certainly do something.
Okay, let's do that. I'll send you an invite to come, Eugene, just to do a breakdown as to where do you think we're at right now, because it's gonna give time for this to simmer, because this is not good. Like, this is absolutely terrible for her. So all I could think of, and that's because I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, is that was the plan all along, to sucker you guys into believing that she was on your side, making a deal with Carney, and now she's out, because she's not stupid. If there's one thing I know about Danielle Smith, she is not stupid. So there's something going on that both you and I are not aware of. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I have no clue how this is good for her. It's not. I don't see her being able to save her face with her base unless she does a snap election. Or maybe that was the whole point all along, is to crush the independent or / sovereign movement, because she made it clear today that she thought the MOU would do exactly that. Like, she said it word for word. Yeah. So, how could it? Like, I literally posted that in the comment section. Like, on the contrary, woman, you just made people that were pissed even more pissed now, because now they don't have a leader that seems to want a sovereign movement. Because at least she was still selling that she was selling the opportunity to say, you know what, if that's what Alberta wants, I will not stand in the way of Alberta. Let's ask the question. That's what they want. That is going to be my new duty, is to make it happen. But now she admitted that that's not what she wants. Clearly, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I heard.
Well, I think the most piercing question was actually Ezra's, where he asked, what did he say in private that made you believe that he's changed his mind on this stuff? And basically what that question says is, there's nothing in front of us publicly that makes us believe this. So what did he tell you in private that made you believe it? I think that was a piercing question. That was a valid question, because there's nothing on the table in front of us, the MOU, the press release, and now the press conference, that will actually give Albertans confidence that he even cares about Alberta and prosperity. That's why that question was so important. What did he tell you in private? Because we don't see it here. Can you give us an answer? And she really didn't. She basically said, well, I've changed my mind on stuff. Maybe the Premier of BC will, maybe Carney will, but I've changed my mind, and maybe others will. That was basically her answer on that one. But for him to ask her as a friend, even, like they're friends, for him to ask her, well, what did he say to you in private to convince you? And she couldn't answer that. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway on this one. Ezra doesn't see the advantage for Albertans sitting on the table in that MOU, and he was hoping maybe there was something else that was said. I don't think we're happy with this. I think a lot of people will be pretty frustrated. And she does have a scheduled, she's calling it a fireside chat tomorrow, Friday at the AGM. So I may have some more information for you then as well. But if somebody created a button that says no MOU and started handing that out at the AGM for people that felt that way, I think you see almost everybody wearing that button.
I'm very curious. I knew today would be, I thought today would be nothing. Just like, you know what, they signed this for bread and circuses, but that's not what we got. We got even worse, as in she is going to piss off her base so much. I don't think that she can get away with this. You can't get away with this.
You can't blow smoke up Carney's butt and do well in Alberta, full stop. Like, she didn't even sound strong against him. She didn't say, like, look, we held him and we hurt him and we twisted his arm and he had to capitulate in some of these things. That wasn't even her position. Her position is, well, you got to negotiate. You got to work with what you got. He's better than the other guy. He's a new guy. Like, she took that position. And that wasn't strength in my mind. That was compromise. Like, she definitely is a compromiser. That's something we've always said about her. But convictions and strength, I didn't see it here today. She was too nice to him. She could have been firmer. She was letting him blame the other guy before and kind of moving ahead. I can see that she doesn't have anything else to work with. Maybe this is the best type of lemonade she can make with this lemon, but there's no sugar in this. So it's going to be a very tart lemonade. Nobody's going to swallow this one.
It's going to be very, I'm
like, I can just see Jeff Rapp right now. His thumbs are going a mile a minute. He's probably posting like crazy right now. Like, leading up to this, he wasn't pleased. I'm sure he's far more displeased after this.
Of course. How couldn't you? I'm displeased and I have no skin in the game.
Yeah, and to answer a couple of the chat posts from Trevor something, you guys are traitors trying to break up Canada. This is a bad relationship. It's not working for us. There's nothing that we're traitors about. This is all legal. It's in our Constitution. The Clarity Act provides it. International law provides it. And this is a democratic process. You may not like it, but name calling is going to not assist you. And we don't mind that the East is very pissed with our idea of separation. You're actually making the case for us. You're not even asking us to stay. You're calling us traitors. So those are the kind of comments that actually adds more fuel to the fire, because you don't want cooperation. You just don't want us to do whatever we want to do in a democratic way. So, and I get those comments daily. So I'll move on from that one. But even Danielle Smith says, no, they're not traitors. They're people that love Alberta, the prosperity of Alberta. So we're going to keep that fight going. I think there's going to be a lot more people that cross the floor to independence than they did this morning. Some people were hoping that this was going to be a better deal, but it's not even binding, folks. Like, this is not, he didn't put it on the major projects list. She said, I hope he does. Yeah. Had he done that, that might have been a better indicator. He even put it on that list with conditions. That would have been a better indicator that he was serious about it. But he literally gave you the bottom of the barrel, non-binding, least effective document to go ahead and take back to your base and say, look, I got something. But we're not silly people. We're very smart out here, and we know what this is. This is just to capitulate. And she bent too far down to Carney on this one. She was even too nice to him. So I think a lot of people are going to be far more upset with this, and are definitely going to be questioning her ability to lead Alberta to the prosperity we know we can have.
Couldn't agree with you more. Just the way that Carney treated her, he had no respect for her ultimatum, gave her a piece of paper I wouldn't even wipe my ass with, and left. He signed the paper. It took him longer to get there than he stayed. He literally stayed long enough to sign the paper, smiled, few pictures, left.
Yep.
Right then and there, he treated her like the help. This is exactly what it looks like. Like the father just showing up to school to, hey, oh, you know what? Oh, you did a good job. Here you go. I signed a paper that has nothing to do, and I'm leaving. Now you explain to the other people in your classroom why you signed that piece of paper. Because he got away clean. He made no promises. He stays intact with his voters. He made her look stupid, and he gets to just walk away and continue wasting a $1.1 trillion trade agreement with the US, trying to make deals that are worth $6 billion over the next 10 years. So he gets to continue virtue signaling. Danielle Smith looks stupid, and she's going to have to explain herself to her base. This is what we saw today. Absolutely insane. It's just insane.
And I think the fatal flaw here isn't necessarily BC's veto, or what do you want to call it, agreement. It's going to be the private investors. In her press conference, she actually said she spoke to some people in the Middle East. They were looking at a data center with natural gas energy to run a data center, but they decided not to even start the project because in 2035 the clean emissions would have kicked in and shut it down. Okay, so let's just hold that for a second. Why in the world would an investor commit to a project on an MOU and say, yeah, we're going to commit this billions of dollars to a project, but we don't know if it's going to happen, and we don't know if the federal government is going to support you, and we don't know if the provincial government in BC is going to support you? Why would they commit any money to any project with that amount of uncertainty to it? Not a chance. So she's going to fail on the private investment portion of the MOU. She's not going to find a partner that can put that kind of capital forward with that kind of uncertainty on the table. They would want to see the laws revoked already. They would want to see actual, being on the major projects list. They would actually want to see BC signing off on it before they even come forward with their portion. I don't see anybody committing. I think she thinks she's going to go around to all these investors with MOUs and say, well, why don't you give me several $1 billion if I can succeed on this project or this MOU? And that's not how these investors work. They want far more certainty. They're not going to allocate capital to one project that may never happen. They're going to focus on projects that will happen. So they're just going to take their money somewhere else in the world where they don't have this kind of uncertainty in the market. So one of the major problems she's going to have is convincing private investors that Alberta is a safe place to put their commitment, to put their capital. I think she's going to fall flat on that one too. And Carney knows it. Carney's a global banker. He's the one who's been pulling the levers of that particular market for a long time. He knows how these people work and what they think. They're not going to go put their money in Alberta under these conditions. And I think he knows it. And that might be the secret that he's not sharing with everybody. Even if you get BC's commitment, these investors are not going to commit to Alberta, not under these conditions.
Not especially when they can just go south of the border and get none of those.
They have other opportunities. Why go to Alberta when we have all of these hurdles in the way and uncertainty? Why? They haven't come for the same reasons. And she didn't fix that problem.
Brookfield just bought pipelines worth billions of dollars in the US. Brookfield. So why would they buy here when they can buy south of the border with no restrictions, with a president that is drill, 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 drill? Ain't gonna happen. There's nothing good that happened today, and everything's left. She's literally left with a sack of burning poop in her hand, and she's like, but oh man, this is
Hey, a
gonna be
sack of burning
very
poop, Nico, produces energy. We don't even have that.
yeah, yeah, and we can probably capture the carbon to make sure that at least the burning poop is not creating more climate change, right?
Yeah, I know this is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. She just made
Can't wait
investing
to
in
see it.
Alberta expensive, very expensive and uncertain.
Or impossible. Nobody in their right mind is going to invest in Canada. Nobody in their right mind will invest in Alberta either. Alberta seemed to be the only place that was liable for investment. Now, after today, anybody with a brain will not invest in Alberta either, and it's insane. Third largest
Alberta
reserve in the world. Crazy.
Yeah, not Alberta in a united Canada. They won't. Independent Alberta has a much better prospect. This does help that movement. I guarantee you there's going to be there's going to be some infographic created about the MOU and how stupid or silly it is or how impossible it is. And then we don't need that in independent Alberta. We don't need that MOU. We can do basically all the same things anyways without permission of Ottawa. So I think it just added fire to that side of things. But I actually can't wait to take a couple phone calls. I got one right after the show, and there's going to be more. I'll probably be busy this afternoon hearing from people about this one.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. It was a great talk. Thanks for wanting to do this today, and I sent you an invitation to have you on Monday.
Okay.
Monday night, so that we can talk about what happened over the weekend and what's the pulse of Alberta over this, especially the sovereigntist independent that was hoping Daniel Smith.
I'll extend that invite if it's okay with you to another independent journalist who may be able to join us on Monday as well, who's going to be at the AGM.
Yep.
So you can get a perspective from a few of us.
100%. If he's bald, he's welcome. I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I don't know if he's bald, to be honest with you. I think he wears a hat a lot. But anyways,
so he's bald.
Could be. I don't know. I'll meet him for the first time tomorrow. So I'll let you know. That'll be our inside thing.
Sounds good to me, brother. Enjoy
right,
your afternoon of talking about this. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you go ahead and do your goodbye, and then I'll push the magic button.
Oh, that's it. I'm just going to thank you for thinking about this, and I'm going to thank all the people in the comments for joining. I'm blessed to have this many people always show up, always interested in what we have to say, especially as a Frenchie from Montreal. So, yeah, I'm blessed, and I got to say to the people out there, there's big things coming up. You and I will have to talk at one point, because there's some massive things that you're going to be part of. You just don't know it yet. But yeah, there's some big things coming, and it's going to be big, bro. It's going to be big.
It's going to be huge, right? It's going to be huge. Are you going to send me an MOU? And we'll negotiate it. And Quebec guy, Alberta guy, we'll have our own MOU.
Yep.
But Nico, it's
100%.
always fun to chat with you. You were very quick on saying yes to this. We threw it together because it was important to cover. And I love working with you, man. You're a good man.
Right back at you, brother.
Hey, everybody, you have yourself a wonderful day. Go see how the online response to this is. I'm sure it's pretty harsh. And we'll see you around tomorrow. Take care, everybody. God bless.